be thinking when you see Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins in the same movie that they would actually utilize two such great actors on set together. But sadly, they have not done that, not even by the closest margin. Because like Pulp Fiction and in The Usual Suspect, you see this movie that is sincerely overhyped. Of course, not as much as those two mentioned movies, but Legends of the Fall really is by description one of the most overhyped movies of the 90's. Because the problem is really more than most that it is very hard to get immersed into the story naturally because it becomes too emotional, and when you can't balance that out, you can never create a good movie. The only really enticing moments in this one is when the boys are sent out to war, but sadly, that's a very little part of this movie, and the rest of the movie, it becomes all about the grief and suppressed love, especially the love between Tristan and Susanna. In their own way, Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt may do decent performances, but they are very little together on the screen, which is a real letdown when you have these two great actors in your movie. Individually, Anthony Hopkins may do a fine role playing this sick old man, and Brad Pitt may be decent at playing this frivolous man that does things without thinking about the consequences of his actions. That's the way you see it. It is not a standout act from neither of them. The story itself is about this epic tale about love, drama, and very little war. But the problem itself is that a lot of the moments in the movie are insanely boring. Again, just consolidating the claim that this is one of the most overhyped movies of the 90's. Of course, it could have been better if you perhaps had less focus on the rivalry between the brothers and about the romance and jealousy, which takes a large chunk of the story. Basically, this whole movie is just about a family drama that at times is even more dragged than Killers of the Flower Moon. Because westerns are not really that entertaining without some tension and gunslinging action, in which you see none of in this movie. In addition, you got the storytelling done by this Native American, but while it could have been an interesting touch to it all, but in this case, it actually makes the story more boring. Because they tried to make it epic, grand, and everything, but it ends up looking like a hopeless movie altogether, with messy and loose ends all the way. That's some of the reasons why movies such as Casino does not hold up today, because of the mentioned voiceover thing, that at times becomes so massive that it becomes rather tiresome rather than good. Naturally, I would have seen more of the companionship and togetherness. It could have been a better movie when they were at it during the war, because that moment when Tristan lost his one brother that was loved by everybody is actually a very important moment in this movie. But it all happens so fast, and the rest of the movie becomes instead about thinking back to that moment, rather using it as some sort of emotional pillow. Basically, you could have seen them boys in the war and in the trenches, which is cut very short in this movie, in order to create this empty tale with different letters from Tristan to this girl, where he ventures around the world, even in Papua New Guinea, which then in the second part becomes a large part of it all, when his older brother becomes a finance guy and has his own firm. Then again, it is all about the rivalry, as one of the brothers, Alfred, played by Aidan Quinn, wants his father's blessing in order to go into government and become a senator, where his father responds with hate and anguish. Basically, the story is too weak and thins out in the second part, suggesting once again that this is really one of the most overhyped movies of the 90's. Naturally, it could have worked if we had seen more of Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt together, more on the screen. Then it could have been a much more powerful movie. In addition, they could have toned down the romance. Then you could have had a movie with more tension and action. Of course, they might have changed the title to Gunslinger Legends of the Fall, but at least it would have been a lot better than its failed project of a movie. I will not give more than a 5 out of 10.